think this is October 29.
27.
Oh, 27, sorry. And we are in Daniel chapter 2, verse 29. That's what got me mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to just keep reading and comment where I want the focus.
Right.
You, O king, your thoughts arose when you were in bed about what will come to pass hereafter. And he who reveals secrets has made known to you that which shall come to pass. Now, never heard anyone comment on this before. First, he says that you know the future, what will come to pass. And then he says, which shall come to pass. That means from this point until the end. So this vision that he has covers from his point of view, where he is now, until the very end.
Okay.
But as for me, it is not because of any wisdom that I have beyond other living things that this secret was revealed to me. Rather, it was so that the interpretation be made known to the king, so that you know the thoughts of your heart. That's why God gave us a neshama.
Okay.
So that we would know the thoughts of our heart, and also through that we know the thoughts of God.
Yep.
It's an instrument that has not been focused on, but that's the basic heart of who we are.
Yep. I agree.
You, O king, were looking, and behold, there was a huge figure. This figure was great, and its brightness was extraordinary. It was standing, facing you, and its appearance was terrifying. The head of this figure was of fine gold. Its breast and its arms were of silver. I won't describe these things until we get the interpretation, okay?
Okay.
And its belly and thighs were of bronze. Its legs were of iron. Its feet were partly of iron and clay, partly of clay. As you watched, a stone was carved out, not by hands, and it smote the figure on its iron and clay feet, and smashed them into pieces. Then all at once the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold shattered and became like shaft of a summer's threshing floor. And the wind carried them off, and no trace of them was found anywhere. Now, let's go on to the stone, because there's another thing here that we don't focus on very much. And the stone that smote the figure became a great mountain and filled the entire earth.
Wow.
This is a dream. Now we will relate its meaning before the king. So he tells a dream. He doesn't give the king a chance to even speak here. At least he doesn't record it.
Yeah.
So we don't know what the king thinks. Oh, yeah, that's the dream I had.
Yeah, right. Well, he probably said that, yeah.
But I think there would have been an objection if it wasn't the right thing. Okay, so in verse 37, you, O King of Kings, notice that. There are all these provinces. There's all these, the whole world is under this guy.
Right, powerful king, yeah.
To whom the God of heavens has given a kingdom of strength, power, and prestige, and wherever dwell human beings, the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky, he has put them in your hand and made you ruler of them all.
Wow.
You are the head of gold. Now, there's a reminiscence in this.
Okay.
When God made Adam, he gave him dominion over the whole earth, and he told him to rule over the animal kingdom, the birds of the air and the fish of the sea.
That's right.
So God gave this king the opportunity to be in the place of Adam.
Wow.
And what has he been going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
So potentially he is the head of gold.
Okay.
God is saying, you are the head of gold.
And gold stands for
the most valuable.
Valuable. Yeah, the valuable. Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the way we will see it as we go through here. Because after you shall arise another kingdom.
Should give the verse. You should keep giving the verse.
This is verse 39. Yeah. I think I'm right. Some of the verse markers are smaller than the print.
Oh yeah.
So I have a little bit of trouble seeing. Inferior to you, and another third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to go back and figure out which one is the bronze.
Okay.
The bronze was the thighs, the belly and thighs. Mm-hmm. Keep that in mind for now.
Okay, now it's verse 40, okay.
And now we're at verse 40, I think so,
yeah. Yeah.
And the fourth kingdom will be as strong as iron, in the way that iron smashes and pulverizes everything. And just as iron shatters all other materials, so shall this kingdom shatter and crush. And as for you, having seen that the feet and toes were partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom, but some resilience of iron shall be in it. Just as you saw that the iron mixed into the clay, I think it says, the muddy clay. And just as the toes of the feet were part iron, part clay, the kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. As for your having seen the iron mixed with muddy clay, the parts will mingle via procreation. That means people of different nationalities and types will be marrying one another. And that will mingle the iron and the clay. But they will not hold fast together, just as iron does not mix with clay.
Okay, now we're ready for 44. Okay.
I want to talk about these parts first.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to look at them. The gold we know is Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar specifically. And then after him arises another kingdom that's inferior, and it doesn't say here what it is, but we got when he gave the dream, it was silver, and it was the chest and the arms. So the silver and its the breast and the arms were silver. That next kingdom after Babylon was Persia. It was the Medes and the Persians.
Okay.
That's the two arms. And it says they were inferior. They lasted actually longer than Babylon did.
It's hard to believe they could last longer if they were inferior.
Yes, and I don't know how Yah looks at them that he would call them inferior.
Did they have less area that they ruled?
Possibly. Maybe they harassed the children of Israel more than... They sent them home, but they didn't go home. The ones that were left in the kingdom... we know through Esther, the book of Esther, that they weren't weren't liked by part of the kingdom.
Yeah. At least at times.
And in Babylon, we'll get a little bit of that too, I guess. But
well, Babylon protected all the items that were in the temple from the temple, which was good.
Yeah, that was good. But it was Persia that sent the stuff back.
But the reason they could send the stuff back was because Babylon had kept it and destroyed it.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, we know though that that's what the two arms are, is that kingdom. Now the next part is the bronze. The bronze is the belly and the thighs. Now I consider thighs part of the legs.
Yeah.
But they're breaking it up between the belly and the bottom of the thighs. Bronze. So that is going to be the belly. My guess, the belly is really the Greeks taking over.
Oh, okay.
And the thighs of bronze were Rome taking over the Greeks. But they didn't really demolish the Greeks.
Yeah, no.
They sort of incorporated the culture of the Greeks.
Because when you think of Rome, you think of all the Greek stuff as well, you know?
Yeah. And well, they liked some of the cultural things.
Yeah.
And Rome they didn't object to anybody's gods. They just they would just incorporate them. So, so I would say the two thighs would be Rome and Athens.
Okay.
And then out of that you get the two legs, which would be the bottom part, the part that goes on from the thigh, and they're called iron. So the iron is really hard and breaks things up and tears things apart, and we're going to get a picture of that later in the book.
Okay.
This figure matches or can be paralleled with other visions that he has.
Okay.
And we can plug what those visions are into this figure.
Mm-hmm.
So the iron part of the legs, I would say, since there's two, that it's the east and the west of the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay. Because Rome did split apart, kind of.
Yeah, at 300. The eastern part of Christianity didn't want this triune God.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't believe it that way. They had several things that they didn't like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they split off from the Rome Church.
So their city was Constantinople?
Yeah, Istanbul, Constantinople. Constance comes from Constantine.
I thought so, yeah.
So Constantine must have got them started there, but they didn't adhere. I think they were influenced from Christians from Lebanon and Syria.
Okay.
And further east. The Nestorians, they call them. I don't know much about them.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I would say that the iron then is the two prongs of Christianity.
Okay.
And they did sort of plow up the earth in that they forced people to become Christians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They used the sword. What is the name of that book we both read?
The Sword of Constantine.
The Sword of Constantine. That's how they conquered the world and made so much of the world. So the Muslims that came along later are just doing the same thing. I don't know whether these two legs figure in the Muslims or not. Maybe they're part of the iron. I don't.
Because that was 600 that the Muslims came along.
Yeah, well, and by then you had these two entities.
Yeah.
The one was called the Byzantine, and the Roman part was, I don't know what it was called.
Roman, I guess.
They called it the Catholic Church, I think.
Mhm.
That meant everybody was part of us. There was a sort of a struggle there. But that's how the world was conquered under this part of the man that he sees, or the figure. They aren't calling it a man, which is good, because then we see feet. Now it starts out here just feet. In the description, it talks more about the toes.
Yeah.
But the feet are made of iron and clay.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard all kinds of interpretations of this. But I would like to say that the iron is still, if you have the Catholic Church as one leg and the Eastern Orthodox Church as the other leg, with the Muslim Islam being a part of the Eastern more than the Western, but they tried to take over the West and didn't succeed. The Spanish pushed them out.
Yeah.
That to me would be in the feet as well. The iron part of the feet, and then the toes seem to be what we have today. There's 10 toes. So somehow the powers in the world are 10. Here,
does that 10 refer to the European Union?
It could be, but it might not. It might be who's in the G8 now. It's been expanded to 10, I think, and it includes China and Japan.
So. Mm-hmm.
I think it includes Japan.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little hard. I'm going to divide this between the iron and the clay a different way. The iron is a continuation, the building of the Roman Empire, what the Roman Empire and the Greeks put into it.
Okay.
And that's the warfare and the conquering.
So some of Rome, sort of, even though the Roman Empire wasn't in existence, but still their patterns continued on.
Oh, their influence is definitely there. Mm-hmm. So that's where I put the iron, because of their conquering and the war. And there's this struggle to take over and have a one world government, like Babylon was a one world government.
Yeah.
And the ancient Babylon, which was the start of Babylon, was a one world government.
It wasn't really one world because nobody ever really conquered China, in that area. I don't think.
We don't know how far it reached.
Okay.
I've listened to some things in that Answers in Genesis video group.
Yeah.
And he talks about how many people were on the earth at different times.
Okay.
And who could have been included in, like when Joseph says he fed the whole world. Well, who was the whole world?
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want to say there, but I think this partly of clay is interesting.
Okay.
Because when he interprets it, he calls it muddy clay.
Yeah.
God started out making man of clay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And this clay was very vulnerable if it didn't keep on with its walking in the way of God.
If it didn't recognize the neshama.
Yes, if it chose the wrong way.
More animal-like than God-like.
Yes, but then it's no longer man then. It's beast.
The beast, yeah.
And this is the division you see in the Bible. If you're, and we'll get it in this book, because it's interesting. I'll just plug this in a little bit here. When Nebuchadnezzar spends 7 years as a beast
Mm.
in the fields, and then he began to recognize the King of Heaven,
Yeah.
it said he stood up as a man. So you're not a man unless you recognize the King of Heaven.
Wow. Wow.
So what I'm saying about this clay is these are people that are mixed in among the iron. They're not the ones that want to conquer the world. They just want to be like God and follow his ways.
Mm.
And you're having that struggle in the United States right now.
Oh, boy.
The ones that want to be free, keep the gift that God gave us to choose, and live as God-fearing people. And then the ones who want to control and dominate everybody and make them conform to their ideas, which are not God-centered because they tend to not want to focus at all on religion except when it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
So we see the difference right there in that country, and you probably have that going on in Europe and all over the place. So this is why they can't hold together. They keep talking about unity in America. And the ones who want the freedom say, I don't know how I can be connected to them because everything they believe is the opposite of what of what I believe. I want freedom. They want government control.
Mm.
I believe in God. They could care less about God.
Yeah.
And it goes on, and the values of each group are so different.
Yeah.
They can't cling together.
You hear this on the news a lot now. That we've never been divided as much as we are now.
That's right, and so that shows that
is it the United States of America or the divided states of America?
Yeah, and some people that are freedom-loving, want the Constitution, are saying we're the United States of America, and they're the anyway, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's reflected in this clay and iron feet.
Okay.
So we have that, and then there is this new element introduced that isn't part of the figure that he sees.
This is verse 44 then?
I think is that the one about the stone out of, not made by a man's hand?
Oh. That's
there was a stone was carved out not by hands.
Let's see.
And it smote the figure on the iron and the clay feet, and smashed them into pieces. 29. Yeah. Well, that was the description in verse 35. And then the wind carried off the shaft that was all little pieces. And there was no trace of them found anywhere.
Yeah.
And then the stone that smote the figure became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So the stone is meant to be a part of the earth. So mountains represent kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
And we have it in all the Psalms over and over again. God is our rock.
Yeah.
So we're going to see that this stone represents a kingdom that God gives to his people.
Okay.
That will be much later in the book.
Okay.
And so we get four beasts in later in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a man that gets the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's these all things come out in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep those things in mind. And we'll what was the last scripture that we read, Frank?
43.
43? Okay. Okay, let's finish down through 45, and then we'll start with 46 next week.
Okay.
So, and during the days of these kings, he's talking about the ones with the iron, the mixed clay.
Okay.
During the days of these kings, the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed.
Boy.
And this kingdom will never be abandoned to the rule of any other nation.
Mm-hmm.
So there will still be nations.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this kingdom that he puts in will not be ruled by the other nations.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it will smash and put an end to all these kingdoms, and it will last forever.
Wow.
In the way that you saw a stone being carved out of a mountain without hands, is smash the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what will happen hereafter, and the dream is certain, and its interpretation is precise.
Boy, that's really something.
So we're going to leave it at that because there's Nebuchadnezzar responds to it, and that's what we'll get.
Oh, God, that'd be interesting.
Okay. It's a very interesting thing.
Hmm.
And we all love the book of Daniel. There's very few people that don't like the book of Daniel.
Right. Oh, it's very popular.
So have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week.